In order to move the dial right forward, we have to show up. And grassroots movements, social movements, this is where we have traction, we have agency. And I think if people can lean into that, and really find their voices and their agency, we need everybody. And if we have that, then, yes, we're going to feel a lot better, but really we really have a lot more hope in changing things.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experience, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible.
I'm Lynn Winter-Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF, a local nonprofit providing older adults with support to help age in place.
Today on Not Born Yesterday, we're looking at political change and how it affects our day-to-day lives. No matter where you stand in the political spectrum, you know we are living through major changes that affect us in large and small ways. So now we want to talk about the emotional impact of these changes and the anxiety and fear they bring to many people. Whether you support or reject the current immigration enforcement, defunding of university, or changes to safety net programs, for many Americans, these issues influence feelings of safety, community, connection, and identity. Children, teenagers, and adults of all ages are reporting higher levels of anxiety than ever before.
Our guest today is Ariella Cook Shonkoff, a psychotherapist, art therapist, and author of Raising Anti-Doomers. Since the current president took office, she's noticed that many of her clients have been struggling with anxiety and helplessness. She offers some coping mechanisms and other strategies for getting through the day. Ariella, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you very much for having me.
Is it common for therapy patients to talk about the impact of political change in their lives, or is it simply part of the anxiety that might have brought them to seek therapy?
There's more and more people coming in with wanting to talk about politics and, what's going on, just feeling concerned by what's going on in their communities. Sometimes, there can be something smaller that brings a client in, an issue, a more personal issue or family relational issue. Yeah, there's a little more airtime happening now to do with politics and a lot of relating. There's a lot of crossover that I hear where a client who's come in who has a history of trauma is triggered by something going on in politically, whether it's ICE raids or whether, it's misogynist language, or there's a lot of triggers that are happening. So there's an overlap at this point.
How do you talk to your patients about these issues? And do you find there are different reactions for older patients?
I certainly, I see my role as really just kind of being there for what comes up, for my clients. So I'm very much open to exploring. I'm an art therapist, so actually a lot of the work we do, we might be talking about something 1 minute and actually move into kind of a more of expressive channeling feelings through different medium onto paper and then coming back around to talk about it. But it's a non-judgmental space. I'm a therapist, but I also am there to validate that, some of these real concerns that folks have about things that are not feeling normal right now. And what's happening is bigger than what's just inside the small therapy room. I think that's really important because it's not happening in a vacuum here. Okay. Right. And I think just remembering that or being reminded of that, or even seeking, encouraging clients to seek supports. And oftentimes I'm directing them to connect with others in different ways, join groups, talk to people who, might have similar concerns. That's the kind of stuff that's really helping people. Making those connections feels really important right now.
You also talk about the importance of taking action. And
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody last night who's one of the more positive people I know, who says, I'm going to get through this by being positive. And then last night she said, I'm not positive anymore. I'm going to go join a march today. Is that helpful? And they said, well, I know it doesn't really make any difference if I show up in an ICE office, but I have to do something.
Oh, I'm curious what if you followed up with your friend and what they said, because I think absolutely, and many of us have experience doing just that, who have participated in a march or rally, or maybe not, but we might have heard from someone else. Channeling emotions into action is a really fundamental way we can feel better, because it's that stuckness, I think, that's really getting to people right now, whether it could be manifest in avoidance, or it could manifest in like this doomerism. But if we get out and move our bodies, right, which is already regulating in and of itself, that kind of movement, walk, anything rhythmic, okay, walking, swinging, jumping, singing, humming, that calms the body. We know that through research, right? So but then you take that out into the crowd, into the, like you're saying, into community and around other people, and you're all, chanting or excited or wanting something to change. You feel that, what I call, or what's called, I call, collective effervescence, right? Where there's something bigger happening, and you're almost all locked into this really good feeling, this high. It's really exciting, and I participated as well in some of these personally, the rallies recently, and the intergenerational aspect of it is very exciting. It's really good to see. So I've brought my kids, and I see others doing that as well.
You have written that, and I'll quote from your book, those of us with some degree of privilege share our responsibility in doing what we can to enact systemic political change. So that's basically what you're saying is go out there and do it. And not only are you protesting, but you're making yourself feel better.
It's a win-win situation. Um, yeah, in order to move the dial right forward, we have to show up. And this, grassroots movements, social movements, this is where we have traction, we have agency. And I think if people can lean into that and really find their voices and their agency, we need everybody. And if we have that, then yes, we're going to feel a lot better, but really, like, we really have a lot more hope in changing things.
I was talking to another woman this morning who said, I'm so worried about my grandchildren. Yes, I can go march, but I'm so worried about my grandchildren. What kind of world are we leaving them?
And I'm concerned, like, what would happen if 10 years from now my grandchildren said to me, what did you do when you saw all these things were happening? And I think there are other people saying, oh, I'm not reading the paper anymore and I don't want to do the news. But the question is, how do you explain to this younger generation what you did or didn't do?
At the end of the day, you've got to just, you make your own choices. But we have, like, right now, right? There is this possibility of doing something, and so maybe if you can do something, even small, no matter how small, right? Or feeling like you care, or even expressing to younger, kids, grandkids, like how much you care, and you want to do something, or maybe you're willing to do something with them, or just having engaging conversations. What's important to you? Like, do you have worries? Do you have concerns? Can we do things together? I think that's a way into that. There's a lot of different groups that are active in their domains, but not working together. I think we have to take little risks sometimes, small risks, or push ourselves out of our comfort zone to show up for young people. So this is kind of a little bit more of an abstract answer to your question, but I do think it's really important to just do what we can, have open conversations with kids about it, and we model that as adults to them, right? How do you take action even though you're freaked out or upset, or you don't want, you're feeling stuck.
When we talk about political action, I think of how us boomers who grew up in the 60s really felt that political action mattered. And I think I felt that by going to Washington and marching and sitting in at lunch counters, that we could really make a difference, that we had an impact on stopping the Vietnam War, and we had an impact on civil rights. I don't feel that today, that I have that can make that same impact.
So you're feeling more hopeless about that, about
About
that.
political action, yeah. About
Mm.
you go to a march and what difference does it make? And I don't think we felt that before. That's all. I think we felt more empowered before.
I still think that there's a way to, if we can come together more and do that. I think Greta Thunberg has a great quote on this, like, first take action, then I'm paraphrasing, and then you feel the hope.
I was just thinking that those of us who were marching in the 60s are now the elders. And like the woman that Lynn mentioned today who said, I have to do something, I have to go to a march, she's in her 90s. And she feels she still has to do something. I'm just wondering if there's a different dynamic for our older listeners, especially those who lived through the 60s.
I think if we can build the intergenerational movement, we all might feel more hopeful, honestly.
I just wanted to change the subject a second and talk about, whether you see this in therapy, about how do people get along with their relatives who are of different political bents. I have
Hmm.
a friend who's going back for a family wedding, and she says, I'm just anxious about talking to my brother because he's of a totally different perspective than I am, and I don't really want to be with him, but I have to go to the wedding.
It's so challenging. I mean, some people, yeah, are compartmentalizing it, right? And they're not agreeing not to discuss. But I mean that I get that. I really do. But I think avoiding those conversations perpetuates the divides. And so I think that like one way through that um, is looking for common ground and looking for what can you agree on or what can you relate to, both of you, and focusing on that and also not on trying to sway the other person, right? The relative. But we're not trying to change opinion, but maybe even just like understand perspective, kind of reflect back, listen, but like accept differences. And there's some organizations that really help with this, by the way, that I think of resetting the table, and I think of nonviolent communication, right? Where you can really generate more productive conversations and instead of avoiding. There's an elephant in the room, and no one, do you want to be at the wedding and you're not talking about anything at all? And that's important, but you're just doing the small chit chat, and then everyone's feeling the weightiness of the moment. It's complicated, but I get it too. It's not always the time to have those conversations either. But if people can be in a regulated state, they're calm enough and they can make some basic ground rules like let's talk and let's really hear each other out in a respectful way, then maybe there could be some productive conversations and moving forward from that common ground place. At the end of the day, like what's important? Is it love? Is it family? Is it maintaining relationships? Is that more important than political views? Still spend time together. It's not always the time to talk politics, and maybe you're like you don't always, but but then sometimes you might have those conversations.
You've written a new book for parents with advice on how they can talk to their kids called Raising Anti-Doomers. I assume you wrote the book before last year's election. Why did you think then that the book was needed?
Well, if it started out with a climate, and it is primarily focused on climate change, so we know that it's been needed for a while, and it's been in the works for a while as well. Um, and I think the timing of it is, of course, quite apropos here. Parenting's always been a challenge, but particularly there's a lot going on with climate change and global instability, wars, and so it's really a time where parents could use a little extra support. And I think what I see a lot, I work with kids and adults, but I see kids, anxious kids, a lot of anxious kids these days. And part of that can be, that trickle down effect that comes from parents are feeling the strain and the stress of this moment and are overwhelmed, and that can come right down to the kids. They can pick up on it if it's talked about or not in the home at home. And so wanting to really equip parents, but also beyond that, grandparents, anyone working with kids and communities with some kind of resilience building tools, ways to, take care of yourself. But then in doing that, you're able to take care of others. So that the book is geared towards, family exercises that are great for parents and adults, but also for families as well.
You mentioned that children pick up on it, climate issues and other things, but do you think that deep down they think the grown-ups are going to fix it?
I think they're extremely concerned. There was like a poll some years ago by, the 10,000 kids. It's in the Lancet, and it's, interviewing 10,000 kids, well, young people, I should say, because I think it's 16 to 21 in 10 different countries. And the majority of them are saying things like the future's frightening and feeling betrayed by adults or feeling like, what are we to do? There's a helplessness, and you can imagine growing up in this world is so different than, the times where we were growing up. If the grown-ups don't have their stuff together, like, and they're not doing it, then it's on us. Or, that's what I kind of, that's the way I look at it.
So I'm thinking of the therapeutic session, the therapeutic hour, and how you deal with this with children who are frustrated and parents who are frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in my own practice, it's not as much direct talk by kids. Like there's some touching upon it here and there of these existential issues, but it's more that there's this kind of pervasive anxiety. It's not that I'm necessarily addressing them those issues like directly in therapy on a regular basis. But validation is one of the most important things. A space where someone says, "God, yeah, this is scary stuff." And I mean, when I will work with parents and say, "Listen, like it's important to even have those conversations with your kids, or create opportunities or make invitations. Like, how are things? There's did you see this headline, or what are you talking about in current events or in your school classes?" And giving these invitations to have conversations about climate change or other issues, right, that are disturbing. So I'll work with parents. I'll validate kids and their feelings and give them space, and also work to connect, help build like for I think this is in my book, but I call it, with working with kids, voice, validate, and vision. 3 V's. So giving them a voice, right, a place to talk, validating their feelings, but then vision is like, okay, what now? And that goes back to what Lynn, when we were talking about action and doing things, because it feels better to be kind of moving emotions through the body, connecting, with people, and taking action, right, and channeling that anxiety or whatever. So it could look something like that. I just want to give the invitation, to balance truth and science with hope. And really, yeah, what makes people feel more hopeful, right? Like, is it spending time with grandkids? Is it going for a walk, or smelling, the flowers in the garden, or volunteering? I think that, yeah, I think it's just really important to find this, like what I called, what I mentioned before, the sweet spot of engagement, where you can actually feel and do and be present and think all at the same time. And find, I think community is like this is like the turning point. So I do want to just say that. And I want to thank you for making space for this important conversation. And I think we need everybody, and to make this happen. And everyone's important in this.
Thank you for talking about this difficult and complicated subject with us. Our guest is therapist Ariella Cook Shonkoff.
Today on News You Can Use, we're talking about a subject that often seems a burden as we age: decluttering and downsizing. Whenever we have guests talk about these issues on the podcast, we hear from listeners who admit they are often at a loss to even begin what they know is an important task.
So today we present a few hints from the book, Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff. We liked the approach because the authors Matt Paxton and Jordan Smith understand the emotional significance of items. Here are some lessons that may help you to declutter and downsize while recognizing your emotional attachment to the memories connected to these items.
First, we are not our stuff. Our stuff may reflect who we are and what we care about, but too often we confuse our possessions with our identity. For example, we can get rid of our grandmother's china or our father's fishing gear without being measured by what we own. We can preserve the memory without feeling guilty or disrespectful about getting rid of things.
Physical clutter and emotional clutter can be intertwined, but it isn't always about elimination. Sometimes getting through boxes of things that have both good and bad memories can lead to emotional healing. Take your time and acknowledge that some objects will be honored in your memory even without their physical presence. The hardest part is choosing which memories deserve physical space in our lives.
We all know stories of families fighting over possessions while missing the real treasures, the stories and connections the things represent. Your children may not want your wedding album, but they will be happy to learn about the event and the stories you can tell. This is a process of honoring rather than discarding. And as we often tell our listeners, the best gift we can give our loved ones is to declutter now so they won't have to sort through those years of possessions. Maybe your children or heirs will want that photo or vase, or maybe not. It doesn't mean they didn't love and respect your choices, but they have accumulated their own stuff, and many of them don't have room for yours. So decluttering is really a gift to those who come after us.
Okay, Miriam, you started to declutter last week, I know. How was that?
It was not hard.
How'd you do it?
I just took a garbage bag into each room and started throwing things in, separating what I could give away and what I could throw away.
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks to our guest, Ariella Cook Shonkoff. You can learn more about Next Village San Francisco at their website, nextvillagesf.org, or you can call them at 415-888-2868. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstedt is our engineer. And we thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discover and discuss. Contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast.org. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All of these are free and let us know our audience better. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.